Alrighty, we are live. We're recording.
Recording
So
live.
we have Jessica Suda here with Summit Insurance. Jessica, take it away. Tell us about you and your business and how you work.
Okay, well, we started Summit Insurance about a little over a year ago, but really hit the ground running full time in August of 2023. I am our producer at this point. I'm our second licensed agent, but John does not really, he's just kind of dabbling so far in writing business. He's more so staying on the owner side of everything. Um, but yeah, we had career changes and wanted to make a difference in people's lives, and so we found a new way to go about that, and here we are.
So what were you doing before you got into insurance?
So before I was in insurance, I spent collectively like 10 years in kind of a law enforcement background, specifically the last about 8 years with community corrections, doing basically probation, supervising clients, and as a part of their drug court team. It's what I went to school for. It was always my passion. But moving 45 minutes to an hour away after having a kid, the drive every day was just too much. And I knew that that was not going to be sustainable for me forever. Also, just getting older and having my kid and stuff too, just seeing other opportunities to get out of that line of work was definitely, kind of I don't know, just a beneficial thing. And so with John being in real estate, and we, found a way to do something different. And he kind of just pitched it to me one day of like, what would you think about getting your insurance license? And I was like, what? Like, no idea what I was doing. Had no, I know we have insurance, but other than that, I was pretty clueless. But I trusted, the situation, and we did it. And here we are. And so far it's working pretty well for us. So
So you guys kind of tied in hand in hand. If he's doing real estate and you're doing insurance, then ultimately you guys could pass clients back and forth possibly.
yes, that was the hope, although it's been kind of a struggle a little bit with our just carriers and all of that stuff. But yeah, that was definitely what kind of got us started, was one line of business leads you to another. So
So I have read some articles and heard some mumblings of insurance being kind of tough right now. Give us a little insight on kind of what you've been dealing.
yeah, so we're in what you would call a hard market. So back in definitely like 2020, COVID time, whatever, a lot of carriers were just very open to taking whatever, especially like your auto and stuff. People weren't leaving their houses. So there weren't a lot of accidents. There weren't a lot of those things. And then obviously, as we saw, as things started to open up in general, cost of living, cost of goods, all the things have just increased over the last couple of years, which directly affects your insurance. So, if your house 5 years ago cost X amount of money to rebuild, built those building materials, they're hard to get in. They're hard to, everything has gone up on that. So building your house 5 years ago and building your house today is going to cost you significantly more, which means obviously if your house were to burn down or have a total loss, to rebuild that is going to cost you more, which in turn is going to cost you more for your insurance. So we saw a lot of carriers even just kind of backing out. They went from like, yeah, give me all your business, to like, no, we don't want you at all. And all of this happened like right in the peak of like us starting. And so it was like we started and we were seeing good rates and things come in and kind of right away. And then almost like within the first, I don't know, month, we saw that decline of like restrictions on underwriting, carriers just saying like, hey, we don't want to write in Kansas anymore, all of that. And it's been tough, and it's still tough, but we are starting to see that light at the end of the tunnel for sure.
So what would you say is your ideal customer right now, being that you guys have faced a little bit of struggle, and you know what is, I guess, your easiest and fastest kind of source of business that you've been helping a lot of people with lately?
So definitely the auto side is opening up a lot quicker than the home. So auto, like we're getting some really good rates back, even just in the last couple of months. So we've gone from seeing really high like down payment rates to like nothing. And so auto is really great right now, like personal auto. Homes are hopefully getting there, but yeah, if you're starting up with your auto, if we can at least save you money there, that's helpful. And then hopefully within the next couple of months, year, whatever, we can work in getting those homes too. But like us personally are really trying to dig into that commercial side. Um, Commercial auto, commercial business, your general liability, all of that stuff is where we're really trying to deep dive into. So business owners, even as something as simple as like you have a mowing, like a lawn care company. That truck, trailer, anything that you're using to haul your equipment, if you have a commercial auto policy versus just your personal lines policy, you're going to have way higher liability limits. People are so happy these days. So having those liability limits up there is super helpful. So I'd say definitely personally, like, let me take a look at your cars. That's kind of what we want to be focusing on. If we can get your home, great. But if not, it is what it is right now. But definitely like business owners, anything commercial, we are pretty open on that side right now.
Awesome. So basically, if you can save somebody money and get them the same or better insurance for them, then it's at least worth a conversation. Uh,
Absolutely.
and so, kind of to backtrack a little bit, you had mentioned like down payment rates.
Mhm.
I personally, I've never had to put a down payment down on insurance. So, what is that? Because I'm kind of clueless on that.
Yeah. So for example, like just as something as simple as your auto. Usually you have it's a 6 month policy for auto. So what they do is it's kind of like your first payment. We just call it like the initial down payment. But what they were doing in the beginning, what we were noticing was, you would have X amount of money. So your payment may be $100 a month, but they were wanting like 30% down up front to get started. So you were like, oh, my monthly looks really good, but oh, I can't afford to put down, $450 in the very beginning or, whatever it is.
Right.
And so that down payment, now what we're seeing, specifically with one of our most competitive carriers we've been using, they are uh, basically the payment comes out to like the down payment comes out to be about the same as your monthly, if not a couple of dollars lower usually. And so you're seeing that initial payment and then on a 6 month policy, five additional, monthly payments there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what in you said you've been licensed for a little over a year now, or right out a
Mhm.
year.
Yeah.
Uh, what's one of the crazier stories that you've ran across in insurance so far?
Um, Probably just in general, clients that have called in expecting to have a policy when they don't. And we, especially in the beginning, we were just kind of like, oh my gosh, what do we do? Make tons of calls to figure out like, how do we help these people who essentially, thought they were being covered and they weren't.
Right.
Um, so I don't know if you want me to like be specific about certain situation, but
You don't want to dive in too much. Uh, what I guess when somebody calls you for a policy, what does your process look like in that realm of things? Like, say, hey, I call you today. I need to get my truck insured. Like, what do I need to do for you to make that happen?
yeah, so with auto, it's pretty simple. And if you have like 5-10 minutes to stay on the phone, if that, we grab your contact information, phone number, email, address, basic things. If we're talking auto, then we ask for your VIN numbers. Those are really handy in getting a more specific number than just like your make model of your vehicles. Um,
That's kind of like your social security number for your car.
Yes, exactly. And so and they're right on your registration or even on your vehicle. So some people are like, I don't know where to get that. It's super simple. We get those, we run them, and basically that's kind of the information. And what I'll do is typically call and have that conversation over the phone of like, is there anything specific that you're needing, as far as like your limits, your medical pay, any stuff like that. Also, if people have their current declaration pages, which are just kind of what is your overview of your insurance with your current company, that's really helpful to see what you have so that either I can compare it kind of apples to apples, but also to make sure that you're covered because people think, full coverage is a thing. And I don't know kind of where that term like started, but full coverage really means nothing. And I think a lot of times people don't understand that. I didn't understand that when I started. And so just when I look at something and if I see like their liability limits are super low or they're overpaying for something that they don't necessarily need, those are conversations then that we'll have once I kind of show them that proposal and what we have so that they're not just, people tend to just see the number. They just want to see, well, how much am I paying? That's all they really care about. And it's like, well, how much are you paying? But also, are you covered if something were to happen? So try to go through all of those things with them.
So when somebody thinks that they have, full coverage, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this also, like, I just think, oh, well, if I screw up out there and I hit somebody, I'm covered.
Yeah.
Not always the case.
Right. So you can have full coverage, but your liability limits might be at like state minimum. So for Kansas, it's 2550, meaning 25,000 per person, 50,000 per incident. And when you're talking, if you have a major accident and you have multiple people in the vehicle, that's going to do nothing for you. Whereas, yeah, so a lot of times that's what I'll see. Like, for instance, actually, I have a friend who was with a certain company and she had full coverage, but it was at 2550. And I said, hey, like, look, this is what this is doing, or more so not doing for you. And I bumped her liability limits up. Essentially, she had the same exact, all the other coverages were the same. It was full coverage. And same deductible, same everything. And she ended up paying the exact same amount that she was with her prior carrier, but with higher liability limits. And so it's just small things like that people I think don't understand is you call in and say, hey, I need full coverage. And you may have an agent that'll be like, okay, I'll put you at state minimums and low deductibles and just to get that low premium. But then when they crash their vehicle or something major happens, they're kind of screwed. And then they're mad because they don't understand why they weren't covered the way they should have been.
Yeah. So then and I don't know, from my experience, do most insurance agents like explain that, or how do you go about saying, hey, here's what this means and here's what this means? Like realistically, yes, we can do this, but it's not in your interest.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for other agents, obviously, but I feel like I've talked with a lot of people who they don't know what they're talking about, and just like, I mean, I didn't either. I didn't until I started learning and going through all of it. So just I guess that's my mission of like, I don't know what other people are doing, but like, I want to make sure that, are we saving you money? Absolutely. That's great. But also I want to make sure that you're getting covered. So I would rather lose a sale, I guess, if you want to say, like, if someone prefers to stay and they have lower stuff, like at least I took the time to show of like, this is where your coverage should be. If something were to happen, I'd rather know that you're covered and doing well and maybe paying a little more. But like I said, I've also had instances where I've raised their liability limits or whatever it is and either saved them money or kept them at the same rate. So just, I mean, in wanting to like help people, that's kind of where I want to make sure, like, are you getting what you're supposed to be getting covered for?
Yeah. So to wrap things up, what how do we get a hold of you? What's the best
So you can call. I have a direct line for phone. I'm on Facebook. I'm trying to like really build up my social media. So feel free to like message me on there. Email. I mean, anything like that is, you can find me.
Right. Well, that is Jessica Suda's story, and she is with Summit Insurance. So, Jess, thanks for taking the time with us.
Of course. Thank you.
See you later.